So I'm a mother of two beautiful young children. One of them is here. And children are scientifically proven to be the most susceptible to the harmful damage of electromagnetic radiation, along with the elderly, people who are sick, and the vulnerable. I'm also a registered primary school teacher. I believe that it is unethical that Australian children are in learning environments with wireless technology set up to 100 times higher than accepted and regulated levels in other countries.
We say no to 5G, no consent from community. We say no to 5G.
I'd like to introduce you to Victor Leach. He is one of the top radiation-trained scientists who over the coming weeks in these posts will prove to you we have everything to worry about if that tower at Teal's Lookout goes ahead. And whether that phone tower goes ahead or not, Vic Leach will convince you we have everything to fear from the EMF radiation coming from the electronic devices which litter our homes and to which we and our kids are addicted. After graduating from Melbourne University with his Masters in Applied Physics in the 1980s, Vic worked for over 40 years as a radiation health physicist and atmospheric scientist, including 10 years for the Commonwealth Government's Australian Radiological Laboratory.
Applied Physics, a 4-year course, graduated with a fellowship diploma in applied physics, and got out into the workforce. I first thought I was going to be a geophysicist, but eventually found my way to the Australian Radiation Labs, which is now called ARPANSA, and I was front and centre of the uranium. Started up the uranium mining section. I wanted to protect miners, so we wrote codes of practice.
Vic was so good at his job, the Australian government sent him to Paris to help nut out international safety standards for uranium miners.
My history is in ionising radiation, X-rays and gamma rays and radon gas. I was sent across to Paris, the OECD, the Nuclear Energy Agency. I was sort of Australia's expert on the measurement of radon gas. We put together all the protocols. We made sure that the men were protected in these open cast mines.
I'm not talking hypotheticals here. The science is clearly in. EMR, or electromagnetic radiation, is harmful to humans, animals, and the environment.
5G free, 5G free, 5G free, 5G free, 5G free, 5G free, 5G free.
So what is 5G wireless technology? Well, 5G is transmitted via powerful 1 millimetre microwave radiation frequencies that need infrastructure such as towers, antennas, cell boxes and satellites every couple of 100 metres apart to ensure efficiency. So if the 5G installation goes ahead as planned, the environment, animals and people will be exposed to 50 to 100 times stronger radiation than we currently experience on 3G and 4G networks.
This is one of the really important pieces of evidence. You can see here that the simulated and real signals from the animal experiments, and when you look at these animal experiments and you look at real mobile phone signals, you get here, for example, 120 effect studies and 18 no effect studies. When you look at simulated signals, is where they're not using real mobile phone signals, you get 69 effect studies and 49 no effect studies. In other words, the evidence isn't so clear. And the reason why real mobile phone signals are very bioactive is because you can see the pulsing. It's variable, it's varying quite dramatically, and it's pulsing. And so all you made up of cells, so your body is having to respond to this pulsing. And this is very clear evidence that these pulsed mobile phone signals, and this isn't 5G, with 5G we're going to have more pulsing, so it's going to go up.
Vic has been published in peer-reviewed scientific and engineering journals on the subject of radiation exposure. In that wealth of experience and practical knowledge gained over 50 years in his field and since his retirement, that now sees Victor a leading critic of his old employer, ARPANSA. ARPANSA dictate what levels of EMF radiation emitted by our phones, laptops, other Wi-Fi systems, and those giant phone towers are safe for us, our kids, and the environment.
ARPANSA, it has a disclaimer on its site that says that their information should only be used for educational purposes. And you should seek professional advice from a doctor or a scientist. So its safe level recommendation is significantly higher than any other country. However, its testing standards are flawed. For example, ARPANSA's safety guidelines use short rather than long-term exposure standards. The current guidelines are based on the thermal effects of a 6-minute exposure on an adult. The implications of this are obvious. They fail to take into consideration scenarios such as kids being exposed to Wi-Fi in the classroom daily and in their homes, to workers being exposed to levels continuously through their work, and the list goes on.
What does SAM stand for? What is it?
Yep, standard is, SAM is standard anthropomorphic mannequin. It's basically trying to simulate the head of it's a soldier's head. It's not a child's head. It's a soldier's head, and the liquid in there is supposed to represent brain fluid. Now it's a heating model. It only looks at heating effects. Remember I said before about non-heating effects? These are not biological, not taken into account. So it's a heating model, and this model uses a fluid, and there's been some arguments about the conductivity of the fluid. It uses a fluid which has high conductivity, high current flow. Now, I don't know if you remember your basic physics, but when there's resistance to current flow, you get heating. So if you want to get a low heating level, you select a fluid which has high conductivity. And of course, there's been quite a lot of arguments about that. It's a model that doesn't really represent the
reality.
The skull, the density of brain tissue varies. It's not a very good model.
Doesn't represent the impact on children or
it doesn't.
Adolescents.
No, doesn't. In fact, there's no. This technology was never meant to be used by children. It was never designed to be used by children.
Radio frequency technology.
Yeah,
really.
It was never designed to be used by children. I think it was never thought that children would use this technology. That it was only going to be. If you remember back in when this technology first came out, it was very expensive. The only people who could have it were basically business people. I think that was the sort of concept initially, but of course we've gone far past that. Everybody's got a mobile phone these days. But yeah, so this experimental design is a best guess at the heating level within the tissue. It doesn't take into account all these other bioeffects.
There is widespread concern and a whole body of peer-reviewed studies that show there is a real and imminent threat to the future of our children and the environment. According to global experts, here are some of the health effects of existing EMR. Cancer, sterility, miscarriage. EMR is also affecting learning and memory, brain function, general well-being. Symptoms can also manifest as headaches, nosebleeds, and skin rashes.
What do you reckon's going on here, Matt?
Oh, well, the man in the orange shirt told me that it's maintenance, and he's apparently an informed contractor to the Telstra Corporation, so...
So do you think it's in fact using the excuse of the floods to put in 5G?
Well, it seems like an opportune moment to do such a thing. Everyone's exhausted and looking after their own calamities, so it's the perfect time for the men in suits to do what they want to do with impunity, and that's it's sad because they're not honest enough to even front what they're doing.
Until recent years, it was a mandate that no phone tower could be built within 500 meters of a preschool, a primary school, or high school because of the proven impact EMF has on adolescents and child's emerging brain. Scientific paper after peer-reviewed scientific paper in France, Israel, Germany, the US, China, Russia, India have all proven that so. But interestingly, neither ARPANSA and no other big Australian telcos have done a genuine and exhaustive scientific study here in Australia.
Let us set a precedent for action and awareness for the rest of Australia.
This is Dr. Prabandra. She gained her doctorate in biochemistry at New South Wales University in the mid-1990s. Ironically, it was her biochemistry studies and understanding how EMF radiation impacts upon human cells that helped save her kids.
How the damage occurs at a very fundamental level, and then talk about the effects on physical and mental health. Like, you know, my kids have suffered with physical health issues, and Hiran actually had ADHD. So he's cured now. That was caused by our wireless things. Hiran could not go to school when he was, he was delayed from school 1 year because he was suffering. He had neurobehavioral problems.